Amazing. All right, guys. So this is the Making Theatre workshop. Welcome to everybody. Trey, I think everybody's in now. Is that right? Just give me a thumbs up on screen. Brilliant. Fabulous. So just to let you know, I'm going to be using my one-man show, Our Kid, as an example. So I'm going to be using extracts and scenes and analysing my approach to creating the show. So, Making Theatre workshop. I broke that down into 4 simple parts. The what, the why, the when, and the how. There are the 4 sections that we're going to be looking at. So that's the what, the why, the when, and the how. First of all, we're going to look at the what section. So when you're making theatre, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what is your idea? What is it specifically? So what is the piece you want to make about? Be specific. Be as specific as you can, right? I always think that you should be able to sum up your piece of theatre in a sentence. Now, it sounds really easy to do that, but trust me, it is really difficult, because if you've created it, it's your baby. You've got all these ideas in your head. But if you can be specific and sum it up in a sentence, that is your reference point that you can always refer to. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to be using my one-man show, Our Kid. So, Our Kid, I'm going to be specific. Our Kid ultimately is about the love of 2 brothers and how that is tested through time and the ultimate betrayal. That is what Our Kid is about. All right? So, what I would say to you is, can you sum your piece up in a sentence? It can be difficult to do. I want to create a hypothetical situation for us all. Let's pretend all of us in this theatre workshop are making a piece of theatre together, all right? So we are going to make a piece of theatre about a gay soldier who's in the army, and he won't accept who he is and feels the need to suppress his feelings. That's what we're going to make a piece of theatre about. So let's just, if you've got a pen and paper, let's write that down. So our sentence is, we want to make a piece of theatre about a gay soldier who can't accept who he is and suppresses his feelings. All right? So that's our summing up in a sentence. And remember how I used Our Kid ultimately is about the love of 2 brothers and how that is tested through time and the ultimate betrayal. Now, within our show, or the show that you would make, other themes will be evident and they'll be running concurrently. So let's just pretend it could be that maybe the soldier has fallen in love with his commanding officer. Maybe he loves somebody else in his ranks, or maybe he loves somebody from the opposite side. Okay, so there could be a love story that runs through. We could possibly see flashbacks to moments. We could see a relationship between his father and his grandfather. Maybe his life was set out for him. Maybe he didn't have an opportunity to go into this. It was always pre-examined for him. There could be, it could be that he's already married and he's got kids and he struggles to deal with that side affectionately. Or it could be that he's reflecting on how he came to be part of this current scenario. So within that, we've got various themes. We've got a possible love story. We've got possible conflict with his wife and his current scenario. And we've got possible a line of abuse or being forced into a situation. Now, they were the themes that could run into this hypothetical piece of theatre that we're creating. But we'd always refer back to that one line. We're making a piece of theatre about a gay soldier who won't accept who he is and suppresses his feelings. Whatever the themes are that you're trying to create within this piece of theatre, it should always, I think, try and relate to that one point. So if you ever get lost and you go, because, you know, you can get all these ideas and you can go on these great tandems and you put 10 plot lines and you think, this is going to be amazing. Does it relate back to what you want to create? That will always give you a reference point to go to. So, like I said, that is an overview. But this all stems from a man who's gay, who's in the armed forces, and who won't accept who he is. So, for your show, regardless of whether it's naturalistic or postmodern, just because it doesn't work in a kind of traditional naturalistic piece of theatre. What do I mean by that? For example, a Jim Cartwright play, or, you know, something which you see on the TV every day. Just because it might not work in that format, it could be that you're doing a piece at university that's absurdism, that's post-naturalism. It could be dance or movement orientated. If you can still sum it up in a sentence, then you have a framework to work around, yeah? So regardless of how you're creating or the styles that you're putting in, you've got that as a framework. Right. What I'm going to do is we go back to that sentence that I said before about our kid, summing that up. Our kid is ultimately about the love of two brothers, how that is tested through time and the ultimate betrayal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 3 clips now from our kid. Give me a second. So hopefully you can see that coming up now. And within these clips, one's at the start, one's at the middle, and one's at the end of the show. And what these are about is referring back to that line. It's about the love of two brothers, how that's tested through time, and the ultimate betrayal. So what's the one thing you want to do? Is show the relationship of the brothers. So that's what we're going to do now. So I'm just going to refer up to this point. Hopefully you can all hear this.
Have you got any brothers? You'll understand then. He was a fucking moron at times. Like when we were at juniors, right, he told the old school he had a flamethrower for an arse. Well, he'd watched Die Hard or some Daft Arnie film. Dave, Johnny, Andy Mac, the old school turned up, right, to watch him drop his bright red pants, cock his leg up like a deranged dog, and set his fart on fire. Well, he only went and sprayed the gas on full, all over his arse, farted, set his arse on fire. Oh, I wish we'd had camera phones then, you know. We would have got about 1 million views on YouTube. He spent 2 days in school, out of school, in hospital, with burns on his arse, and no school. Lucky bastard. Mum went mental at me. Started mithering me, saying, "It's all your fault, Jimmy." What?
So that's right at the start of the play. That's about 30 seconds into the play. So what I've done there is I've tried to show initially this relationship between the two brothers. You kind of get a sense of that comradeship, but also, while at that last bit play, is how one tries to fool about, the other tries to be a bit more like the older brother, and essentially, because he's the older one, he gets blamed for his little brother's misgivings. Okay, so we get a sense of the two characters in the relationship there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to skip to the next point, which is about 10 minutes in. Okay, here we go.
As I was a superhero and I had magic powers. Grandbody grapes and Lucasade.
Let's go for it.
That was my first trip to the hospital. I had to wear this daft mask. Convinced all the lads I was a superhero and I had magic powers. Grandbody grapes and Lucasade. I My kid bought me 4 pack of stickers. I used all my pocket money. I was saving it to buy a computer game, but well, I thought of it. I'm sorry, Jimmy. It's all right. Does it hurt? Yeah, a bit. Your mask looks cool. You look like Batman. Grandma said you broke your nose. Might make you a bit better looking, eh? Jenny, what? What we're going to tell Dave and Andy and all the lads at school? Shit. Tell them we were in a fight with the Moss Side lads. Yeah, tell them that. Tell them we won.
So that's a little bit further on into the play. The reason I picked that clip specifically is we relate to that line, the ultimate betrayal. So this is the first act of betrayal that we as the audience see. For those that haven't seen it, I'll give you an insight into there's a stepfather plot that comes in that's an abusive stepfather, and the boys don't like him and they want rid of him, and he buys the mum some flowers, and the younger brother Jimmy says we should smash the flowers and that'll piss him off, and the older brother, who's the protagonist, says no, we shouldn't do that, she'll get upset. And he comes home from winning a football match and the flowers have smashed on the floor. And his mum goes, how could you? And he's basically saying, but I didn't do it. And she goes, I know you did it because your brother told me you did it. And his mum flips and she hits him and he falls and bangs his head on the floor and he ends up in hospital. And that's the scene you've just seen, him and his brother in the hospital. And that's why his brother's brought him stickers with his pocket money and says sorry. And there's a sense that the older brother forgives him instantaneously. So we're seeing that dynamic already of the younger brother blaming the older brother and Jimmy always taking the blame. Does that make sense? Cool. And I'm just going to show you one more clip, and this is a lot further on in the play. So this is after the ultimate act of betrayal. So we've got 51. Well, let's go from there. Cool.
So I agreed to meet Tommy on Friday. As long as Dave has a word with the McKennas about getting me back in. Dave, Andy, fuck off. McKenna, can we have some privacy, please, mate? What do you want? Sit down. I said, what do you want? He seems nervous. He's biting his nails. Look. I'm sorry. All right, well, I thought what? You thought what, eh? You thought I'm a jealous little bastard, so I'll fuck your fiancé. Is that what you thought? No, I thought it was over. Look, I was trying to do you a favour. She was trying to trap you. You're fucking pathetic. Do you know that? You're lucky you're still breathing. You've always been a jealous little bastard, haven't you? Oh, fuck off, Jimmy. You fuck off, Tommy. Look, Jimmy, you're my brother, alright? You're no fucking brother of mine. You hear me? You stay away from me. Until that slag the same. Now go on. Fuck off.
Oh, sorry about that. Just bear with me one sec. Sorry guys, one sec. Technical problems. There we go. All right, cool. So yeah, so they're the 3 clips I wanted to show you, and that would always relate back to the what your idea is, be specific. So those 3 clips all worked around that one line. I showed you a clip from the start, about just under halfway through, 3/4 of the way through. We've got that running theme of the brothers' relationship. Now, everything that goes on around that, I built around that relationship, right? So the other plot lines, such as the abusive mother who favours one child over the other. That always interlinks with the brothers' relationship. Okay, so her decisions affect their comradeship, and the decision that one of them makes affects how she behaves. Okay, the new partner, the abusive stepfather, right, that helps to build their relationship. And then the gang that the two brothers fall into, how they climb the hierarchy together. So those are the plot lines, but they all work around the relationship between the two brothers. Does that all make sense? Cool. So the next thing you need to decide in the what is, what are the main themes or plot lines you want in the show? So we've got, what is your idea? Be specific, sum it up in a sentence. But what are the main themes or plot lines that you want in the show? Right. In Our Kid, Jimmy and Tommy's relationship holds the story together, okay? But within that, one of the main plot lines is the relationship between the mother, right? How she favours Tommy over Jimmy, and how that affects the brothers' relationship, right? Because she favours one over the other, what that means is that Jimmy is searching for something to fill him, like a love or a need that he doesn't get from his mother. Whereas with the younger brother, he feels he can get away with murder because his mum will always back him. And in that small, tight-knit community, he feels secure and safe. So the mother is one of the main plot lines. How she treats them, how that leads them, how her decisions, such as taking in a new partner who's an abusive stepfather, ultimately creates this aggression within the boys and pushes them towards acceptance. And that's what leads them into gang life, which is another plot line. The two brothers rise through the ranks of a local gang. And we see their rise, how they came to pass, and how the mother almost just accepts it. So it's about linking in these themes and plot lines. Once you've got your story, what you think it is, think about what your themes and plot lines can be. We talk about the hierarchy of a story, of how you've got this story, how you come to the middle of the story. In the middle, there's a big thing happens. It looks like we're not going to get past it. There's a little bit of a down to an up. That's the general crescendo of a story. With a piece of theatre, the beauty about theatre is that you can kind of make it what you want. The action, we can work from the end of a piece of theatre to the start. We can go straight into the action and flash back. That's what makes theatre magical. But you've still got to try and think about how these plot lines and themes work in tandem with that sentence, but also it's about keeping your audience engaged as well. So we've then got another plot line that I put in, which is to do with Mary. Now, Mary is a lady that Jimmy, the protagonist in Our Kid, meets, and he falls in love with her. And as he falls in love with her, and it's the first time he's really been in love, he realizes that she's filling the void that he needed. And so he starts to dedicate himself towards her. What that then means is he pulls away from this gang life and this kind of negative relationship he's got with his mother. That's when his mother and his brother realize, oh no, we're not having that. And they get jealous and they're trying to get him back. But again, that still links in with that sentence about the relationship of the two brothers. She's just another plot line that comes in. But all work in motion with this story. So, what are your main plot lines? What are your themes? And how do they link into your main story? I'm using Our Kid just because we're watching extracts of it and I can refer back to it and it's there in my head so I can explain quickly. When you're creating your piece of theatre or you're making a piece of theatre, you've got the time and the freedom to experiment and try things. And some things will work and some things won't work. And you know what? Failure is a massive part of success when you're making a piece of theatre. Trey will tell you the same thing. The amount of times there's days when you go in and for 10 hours straight, nothing works, right? And you go home and you headbutt in the wall. But you go in the next day and one beautiful moment emerges. And all then 10 hours of failure is what led to that. Don't be afraid to fail. Try these plot lines, try these themes, but make sure that they work and interlink to that main specific point that we said at the start. So we've got the mother within our kid, her relationship. We've got the gang life. We've got the abusive stepfather. And we've got Mary. They're the main plot lines that exist within our kid. Themes that are interlinked. We've got love. We've got crime. We've got austerity, because I grounded the show in the surroundings of like Salford and Manchester. These two kids are from a council estate, brought up with nothing. So that the lure of crime's always there. So these are the main points to summarize the what. The what, be specific about what your play is. Sum it up in a sentence or your piece of theatre. With plot lines and themes, make sure they contribute something towards the show and play a purpose. Don't be afraid to cut things out. Never be afraid. Experiment with your plot lines and ideas. If you're working in tandem as a team for a university project or at college or something, listen to each other's ideas. Try them out. Always try something. If you've got the time, try it. It might just work. If it doesn't add anything, don't be afraid to scrap it. Right, I'm going to set a little task for you now after that, because I've been jibber-jabbering on and you'd probably like to shut up for 5 minutes, so that's what I'm going to do. So I want you to use that soldier idea at the start, okay, about the gay soldier in the armed forces who can't accept who he is. I want you to take 5 minutes to think of a plot line or a story that we could introduce, but I want you to try and relate it to that specific idea. I'm not going to tell you what the plot line is. I want you to be creative and try and think of something. I'm not going to give you, so what is it? 11 o'clock now. Yeah, that's all right. We've got time. I'm going to give you 5 minutes now. So it's 11:04 on my clock. By 11:09 is when I'm going to ask for a couple of hands up, and I just want to speak your ideas. So take 5 minutes using all the things we've spoken about now, and I want you to think of a plot line that we could introduce. It could be multiple plot lines if you've got a couple ideas, but relate it back to that line that we wrote, the specific line. If you haven't wrote that line down, I'm just going to read it out for you one more time. I can't remember what I said. So we're making a piece of theatre about a gay soldier who can't accept who he is and suppresses his feelings. Write that sentence down. Now I want you to think about a plot line and potentially a theme, such as love, crime, murder, that you can introduce within this story. All right, here's your 5 minutes. I'm just going to nip to the loo and I'll be back. keep referring back to that point as well, that specific line that we wrote down. This is all about experimentation, so don't be afraid. An idea that you're like, oh, I'm not sure about that, could be a fantastic idea. You know, that's what it's about. That's what this workshop's about, essentially, trying things. Just got a couple more minutes now. If it helps, think about our kid, the clips we saw, the themes and the plots that I introduced. Could you introduce something similar, or do you want to go completely away from that? The best thing I could say is that at the moment, this moment in time, where all we've done is given each other a line, no answer is the wrong answer. Because we could have 10 pieces of theatre that go in a completely different way that are all equally as amazing at the moment. So don't be afraid to share whatever you think. All right, just over about a minute left now, guys. What I'm going to do in a minute's time when I ask you to stop is I'm just going to ask for 2 or 3 people to raise their hand. If 10 of you raise your hand, I'll try and pick out the first ones. There'll be other points where you can contribute later on as well. There's going to be a couple more little tasks to do. So if you don't get a chance now, I could try and make sure that if you go in this time, I pick someone else in the next time. All right, cool. So I'm going to ask you all just to stop there for a moment. What I'm going to ask you to do now is how we did before about on the participants where you raised your hand. If anybody feels confident sharing their plot lines or themes, just raise your hand. I think Amy was the first one to raise her hand, and then Scott. So what we'll do is we'll do Amy and Scott, and then it was Savannah afterwards. So if we've got time, we'll do Amy, Scott, and Savannah. If not, because Madison was after that, potentially it could be Savannah and Madison that go on the next point. I'll try and be as fair as I possibly can. So Amy, I'm going to ask you to share first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute myself now, and I ask everybody else to stay muted, and let's hear from Amy. Okay, Amy, the floor is yours.
Thanks. I have 4 different ones. The first one is that he's in love with his best friend in the army. The second one was that his mum died at a young age. She was his only feminine influence. The third one was that his brother finds out and exposes him. And the fourth one is that he attempts suicide. And that's all of them, so I'm going to mute myself now.
Amy, I think you've come up with 4 really strong plot lines there. That also, I think that some of these could work in tandem at different points in the play. I don't think they all have to be. It could be that he's already, for example, it could be that he's already committed suicide, and we as an audience don't know he's committed suicide yet. And this is him relaying his story up until the point at the end where we find out he's committed suicide. For example, in love with a best friend. I mean, what an amazing plotline that could be. The strong relationship that works throughout the play. The one continuous thing that he's got. You know, maybe he's in love with his best friend and he doesn't know that his best friend's in love with him as well. Another fantastic plotline. And you said the feminine influence was the other one, wasn't it, with his mother? Was it that his mother... Sorry, Amy, just remind me. I'm just going to mute myself in a moment. Was it that his mother passed away? Sorry.
Yeah. Or left. One or the other. You're still muted.
I'm still muted. Sorry. First of all, everyone, I really thought there were 4 really great plot lines, and I've written them down, Amy. Could they all relate to that specific piece? I would say yes. I think all 4 of them we could still interlink with that main summary at the start. Well done, Amy. That's fantastic. Who else did I, on my brain, who was it? Scott, I think, was it Scott who put his hand up next? I think it was. Scott, I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to ask you to take the floor next. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, I got love and conflict, but at the same time, as he doesn't know what he should be feeling and he doesn't really want to be feeling it. I got love at first sight, kind of, and I went kind of down the friend route as well, loving his friend in the same trench as him. And I also got, I'm not sure what they would have called it, but it kind of comes out that he is gay and he kind of gets put in a cell for a little bit of time to kind of show what happens if he carries on this way. And yeah, that was what I got.
Brilliant. Again, Scott, some good plot lines there. I like how you've got your theme of love and conflict, which kind of interlinks with some of Amy's ideas already. It's funny how we're kind of working on a tandem here. And then the notion of love at first sight would, again, you said about somebody in the trenches, which is a good, I think it's a strong idea as well. Or another way you could link in could be that his best friend is called up with him as well, so they go in the army together in the same unit. So that's a way of interlinking these two ideas. And did you say, I think the last one was about him then finding out and put him in a cell?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they would have called it, but yeah, like jail or something.
I understand. So with that one, I think the only thing is sometimes is we'll move on to this in the moment, is about settings in terms of a time frame you set it in. And if we were to, for example, if he was the soldier to be arrested, to be put into a cell, they would really have to justify the reasoning for it, unless the story was more themed around the negligence of the army. Does that make sense? So sometimes we have to consider the circumstances surrounding it as well, if we're going to make it believable to an audience. But why I wanted you to do that is because I wanted you to use this notion and put these things in place that I've implemented at the start. And so far, I think you have done. So keep those ideas, keep those plot lines written down. Savannah, you didn't get a chance this time. However, I will give you the first opportunity on the next one, along with Madison, who I think were the next two people who put their hands down, just because I'm aware of the time and I want to make sure that you get all the content from this. All right, guys, fantastic, good start. So that's the what. Now we're going to move on to section 2, the why. So, why are you creating this specific piece of theatre? Why exactly are you doing it? Now, it could be for a university project. It could be that you guys are studying with Trey at Oldham and she has set you a piece of work. So you're creating this specific piece of theatre for that, okay? It could be that you want to put on a piece of theatre at a festival, or it might just be that you want to showcase your talent as a performer, right? What you need to do is be specific, know why you're creating this, and set yourself goals. Always set yourself goals with creating theatre. You know what? To brainstorm ideas and to go and try and make something is great. But do you know what one of the most difficult things is as someone to create theatre? Is to be disciplined and to work in a disciplined format. If you set yourself goals and timeframes to work towards, trust me, you will push yourself. I'm going to give you an example. When I created Our Kid, and I've still got this written down, I created Our Kid because I wanted to enter the Greater Manchester Fringe Festival. I entered that festival because I wanted to showcase my abilities and I wanted to understand where I'm at. So every day, if I struggled, I'd go, That's where I need to go. That's what I'm doing. I'm working towards entering the Greater Manchester Fringe Festival. It starts on that date. Why am I doing it? I want to know how good I am. I want to know if I could do it. If you've got that somewhere, you can always refer back to it. It sounds pretty simplistic, but it's a very good psychological technique. It's like if you set yourself a goal and a deadline, even for people that like work out, go to the gym, if it's weekly, a monthly deadline, you're always working towards that goal. You can always reset your goal as well, okay? So know why you're creating this specific piece of theatre. Set yourself goals. The next question is, why this idea and why not another one? Which, again, can be very difficult as a performer because you can have 20 ideas in your head. So what you need to know is why you're going to choose this idea and why not another. Now, it could be that the reason you're choosing this idea is it relates to the show. It relates to the reason that you're creating the show. So, for example, sorry, Trey, I'm going to use you again. Let's say Trey has set you a project at university. Let's say it's set around the oppression of America in 1940s. Okay? If you know that that's your theme, it could be the reason that you're creating this play is because, or this piece of theatre is because it works in tandem with that theme. Amazing. If that's what it does, fantastic. If you've got an idea about bourgeois mentality and the oppression of the working class, or you've got an idea about La La, Poe and Tinky Winky go on a journey around Manchester, you know, if one idea seems to lend itself more, lends itself more towards that piece of work, then you already know your reason why, if that makes sense. You know, this fits more in tandem. I can use this as a basis. That's not always going to be the case. So you need to know your reason why. Why this specific idea? Ask yourself, right? What makes it stand out from others? Why do you like this idea? And what makes it different to the other ideas? I'm going to show you an example. So I said to myself, why our kid? Why not another play that I had in my head called Little Jimmy? So I wrote down why. It'll be premiering at the Greater Manchester Fringe Festival, right? Our kid is set in Manchester and Salford and is about life here. Our kid is a Mancunian phrase relating to two brothers. This story is about two brothers from Manchester, okay? This is a hard-hitting story focusing on crime and austerity. Now, at that moment in time, we were in a real state of austerity still, and youth crime levels were the highest they've been on record. The show, I felt, had a Manchester sound. Every time I was writing it, I felt this Manchester soundtrack that links the plot line, right? So I thought, well, that relates to Manchester. That's going to introduce people. And then it's a difficult story. Essentially, parts of it are about working class kids and what their normality is. And I am a working class kid from a rough council estate. So I felt I could lend myself to it. So that was my reason why. I tried to write down in a paragraph, why this? That's what I would always suggest you guys do as well. Know your reason why. And then if you ever get a day where you go, oh, no, this is not the right idea. No, I should have done that idea. No. You go back to that and you go, no, it's at the Fringe. This is why I'm doing it. I've got this. I've got that. Again, about your specific line at the start, this is your reason why. That gives you the reference point. And you might read it one day. The amount of times I'd be like, oh, this plot line that makes sense. Everyone's going to think it's shit. And then I'd read this paragraph and go, no, that's what I'm being true to. It works into link with the first about setting your goals. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen again, refer back to the show, Our Kid, and just show you the things that I said there about the soundtrack, about the setting, about the theme, and about the approach. And then I'm just going to talk about that for you now. So just give me 1 second. Yes, share that, please. So it's about 15 minutes in. Let's go from there. All right, so I'm just going to play this now.
It's time. Tonight, Jimmy. Yeah, tonight. Dave's come out of the King's. Look, he's in there. Pissed. We'll get him out, Dave, and walk him towards the ginnel at the end of the car park. Well, what if he suspects what's going on? Just fucking do it, Dave, all right? Jimmy, can we do this? Think about, man. I've got you, bro, all right? I've always got you. So there we are, at the end of the ginnel. Hoods up, heart beating like a drum, mouth as dry as Gandhi's flip-flops. Dave's come out of the pub. He's chatting some right shite to him about how he's going to buy him a beer. And how he's like a dad to us. Poetry in motion. Tony! Fucking hell. Jimmy, look at him, Dave, the greasy little whack! Yes, Dave! Fucking at it! And then out and everywhere. Every beating, every foul-mouthed word, every black-eyed apology pours out of me. Pure rage! Ah! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, no! Oh, fuck. Oh, shit. I'm covered from head to toe in blood. Oh, fuck, is he dead? Oh, he's still breathing. You touch me, Mum, again, I'll fucking kill you. We did it, Jimmy. Yeah, we did it.
Just going to stop it there, guys. Oh, actually, 1 second. Yeah, that's right. So, there we go. The reason I picked that clip is we get an idea of the setting. So once you see the whole production, you'll get more of an understanding. But they're at the back of the pub, the King's Arms, a pub in Manchester, hid at the end of a ginnel. Ginnel being what not everybody calls it a ginnel, snicket, alley, whatever you want to call it. That's the Mancunian phrase. Waiting there. The stereotypical Mancunian man swaggering out of the boozer, pissed. That notion of the two lads just running up to him outside a pub, kicking 10 bells out of him, and that being normality. And then the kind of, we've done it. Yeah, we've done it. The two brothers' relationship, the swagger off with the Mancunian music. I think within that 2 minutes clip, if I come back to my paragraph that I summarised about why I'm doing it, bearing in mind that this premiered at the Greater Manchester Fringe in a Manchester pub upstairs in the King's Arms, we get a sense of the atmosphere we're in. We've got the Mancunian soundtrack. We've got the working class themes that run through it. And we've got that sense of degradation, austerity, and violence being a part of everyday life. So that is why I wanted to show you that clip, to show you how I interlinked parts of the storyline in with that one paragraph about specifically why I'm doing it and what makes it different. Also, my approach makes it completely different. The fact that I use various mechanisms. So I would say that Arkid is not a traditional piece of theatre from a realistic point, as in it's not just a standard piece of realism. I use various techniques. So I try and create realist conversations, which is like your everyday conversations, like your Coronation Street. If you watch a film and you see two people communicating, usually it's in the style of realism. And then I tried to use postmodernism as a way of switching and incorporating the body and making it more physical. So they were kind of my approaches to it as well. And yeah, but it always referred back to that one paragraph. So that's why you need to be specific with your why you're creating it. Why am I creating this piece of theatre? What makes it different? Why am I doing this specifically? Why have I picked this idea over the 20 others I have? And if you can summarize, be specific, once you're creating, you can always relate back to that. You've got that there. That's your format. So that's why. You need to consider every aspect of the show. And we'll touch on this a little bit further on. Why this setting? Why this time frame? Why this story? And why am I doing it now? The more you know the reason, the answers to that, the easier it's going to be for you in your experimentation and creative process. You're going to need to set yourself time to actually go and experiment and play and try things out. That's such a fundamental part of it, of the what, of the why, the when. The what, the why, the when, the how is going to give you a plan. It's going to give you a notion of how to do it. I can't put you in a rehearsal room and make you explore and experiment. I can tell you that I can show you how I did it, and I can explain how I did it, and I can go through my experiment stage, but that's such an integral part of it. But I'm not going to pretend it's going to be easy. You're going to go in one day and you're going to have it like that. Because you're going to have days, especially if you're working together as a group, where one of you's got a really strong idea, the other's got a really strong idea, and it's about working as a collaborative. The best way you can do that is give yourself as much time in the rehearsal and the experimentation stage as you can to try these whats, try these time frames, try these settings, see what comes through. I think if you're working as a group, it's quite easy sometimes, especially if one of you's more a leader or more vocal, because I tend to be that person, to go, I've got this great idea, it's there, and people will kind of go, yeah, all right, you're the leader, you're at the forefront, let's go with you. But that person could have an amazing idea as well. So I think within these processes, you always need to give people the opportunity to go, all right, well, this is my idea. But if you know that Steve, we'll pretend hypothetical Steve, is maybe not someone that speaks up. Steve, what do you think? Have you got any ideas? He might go, no. But Steve might come up with something that might work. So it's really important to hear from every member of the group, for all of you to contribute, and to always try someone's idea. Even if in that moment of time you go, that doesn't work in with our paragraph, that doesn't work in with our specific line, and it doesn't work in with the time frame we're thinking. How do you know? They could try it and suddenly it could gel things together. So make sure you allow everybody the opportunity, and make sure you give yourself enough time. We always say that in theatre. It's funny because what's normal now is to go into rehearsal for 3 weeks and put a piece of theatre on. You know, you get a job, a gig. Panto, for example, right? You go and do Panto, and you guys, if you've seen Panto, you're going to see this amazing production that's, you go, God, they've put hours in that. And realistically, you were sent a script and you were told you've got 14 days. You go in and you're doing 13 hours a day rehearsal for 14 days in a row, up to your dress. And you're like, and sometimes it can be really stressful, and it takes a week for the show to get to where you need it to be. But we don't always have that luxury in smaller projects or other projects, because we need it to be, if you've got a performance that you're doing for Trey that's being marked on Wednesday, you don't have 4 shows leading up to Trey seeing it on Wednesday, for example. Or if you're opening at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and there's reviewers coming in on the Friday and Thursday's your first show, you've only got 1 show. So you haven't always got that time to build up towards it. So you need to make sure you've got adequate time. The more time you've got, the more you can perfect it. Does that make sense? Fabulous, fabulous. Right, this is where I'm going to set you guys another little task. So, continuing on with the soldier theme. Amy's got her hand up. I like that, Amy. Thank you. Continuing on with the soldier theme, I want you to take a few minutes now after seeing our kid, to think about the time frame, what time you might set it in. For example, are you going to set it in the 1800s in London, in this soldier theme? Are you going to set it in modern day in Britain? Be specific. Think about the time frame. Think about the settings as well. So where it's set, what the time frame is. And I want you to just try and jot a couple of lines about why you've chosen that time frame and why you chose that setting. Or for what reason we might decide that this is the strong point. Now, I'm going to just give you everybody, does that all make sense? If anybody's not sure, please do unmute yourself and tell me now, and I'll give you a second if anybody wants to. If nobody unmutes, I'm going to think that you all understand what I'm saying. So I'm just going to give you a sec just in case. Cool. So I'm going to give you a few minutes now to do that. And then I'm going to ask for volunteers. If Madison and Savannah are part of the volunteering process, just because they put their hand up last time, I'll give you guys the first. If you feel you're not comfortable to share on this one, that's perfectly fine. There might be other opportunities as well. So don't feel pressurized. All right, guys, so it's I make it by my watch, 11:33. I'm going to give you 4 minutes to 11:37. Go. I'm just going to help you out along the way by reading out what I said to you before about our kids. It premiered at the Greater Manchester Fringe. It's set in Manchester. It's about life in Manchester. Arcrid is a phrase relating to two brothers. The story is about two brothers from Manchester. It's a hard-hitting story. It focuses on crime and austerity. We were in a time of austerity with youth crime levels at their highest. The show's got a Manchester soundtrack. Again, it's premiere in Manchester. It links the themes together. It told a difficult story about working class kids and what's normal for them. I am a working class kid from a council estate and felt I could bring myself something to it. That's just to help you. Give you a few minutes, guys, all right? So remember, I'm asking you for the setting. I'm asking you to think about a time frame or a way that you could link through, maybe music. And I'm asking you to try and justify that as I did, just with it. It doesn't have to be as long as mine. It could just be a couple of sentences. That's what I'm asking for. If you've got ideas that you've used before, when I asked you about plot lines and themes, maybe you link it in with that. Even if you haven't had the chance to share it with the group, you've still got that to use. Couple more minutes left now, guys. All right, 1 minute left now. All right, that's time, everybody. Okay, so same as before, I'm going to ask you just to raise your hand if you'd like to share. Madison's name up. So Madison and Savannah's name is up. Amy's name was up as well. Amy, I'm just going to let Madison and Savannah share on this one just because we got some fantastic ideas from you before. So Madison, I think your hand was up first, so I'm going to come to you first, and I'm going to ask you to share the time frame and the setting and try and give us some justification as to why you did that. So I'm just going to mute myself and let you speak now.
Hey, so I thought to set it in modern day Britain times, but the location in Scotland for some reason, because I felt like there is still similarities in like back then and now in terms of like how gay people are treated differently in the army and how it's seen by other people's views and stuff. And I always like to relate stuff that I write to like music, like I'm like inspired by. And I don't know why, but Tainted Love, the song came to mind because I love writing comedy and I feel like I would make it comedic, but then like the lyrics in Tainted Love is a bit like how the soldier is feeling because he wants to run away because of like suppressing his feelings and how he like doesn't want people to really know. And that's kind of why I got on the situation.
Okay, just stay unmuted for me, Madison, a minute. So you said about the notion of setting it in Scotland. Could you elaborate on, if I said to you, if I was like, say I'm going to give you funding towards this, and I say, all right, so I've got this pot of fund that I'm going to give you to put on. Why, can you tell me and my funders, let's pretend everybody else is the funders, why did you choose Scotland? What is it about setting it in Scotland?
I think people see the stereotypes of people who come from Scotland to have a very like tough like barrier or like shield that put themselves up. And I think like back then they were seen as like a strong community, you like a united community and very like up at the forefront, you could say aggressive. So I feel like that would contrast with kind of like the gay and LGBTQ like culture if you're thinking of stereotypical ways. So that's kind of why.
And in terms, because obviously Scotland's a large country, are you thinking about a specific demographic? Like, would you say it's, for example, I think there's a massive difference between culture in central Glasgow than to North Aberdeen.
Yeah.
Did you have an area in mind? You know, that notion of being very specific. Would you say, it's North Aberdeen, or would you say it's central Glasgow, or where else?
I think I would say it's more north in terms of what I'm thinking of, like, how people are like. I'd say it's more north. So.
Okay, cool. And the last thing that I'd ask about that is, are you from Scotland? Do you have any Scottish roots? Do you have any family from Scotland, or do you relate to Scotland in any way where you can bring that to the forefront? Does that make sense?
I know people who are from Scotland, so I kind of get a sense of what it's like, but obviously I'm not from there. I don't experience it myself. So it'd be something to deeply research into, as you don't obviously want to offend somebody, but then like you just want to, like for me, I want to make it comedic. So it's, yeah.
No, I understand. And I think a key word you said there is research, because I certainly couldn't, I don't know enough about the north of Scotland to know whether that is or not. For example, the way that there's an oppressive culture there, or there has been an oppressive culture in Midden Day towards LGBT communities. So I think if you wanted to set it somewhere that you maybe don't have a lot of knowledge about, or that you have a small understanding, that keyword that you said there is research. Research into that setting. And if you're still not sure, my advice would be to take it away from that setting and to set it somewhere more familiar, or that you have more of an understanding of. But thanks for that, Madison. That's great. Savannah, I'm going to come to you now, please. So the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi. So I was going to set mine at the beginning of World War II. So like 1914. That's right, isn't it? That's the right date. I was going to do it in like the style of reading a diary, like a diary entry, so kind of like narrated. So obviously it's been like 75 years since the victory in Europe, so I thought that would link nicely with, you know, we've just done VE Day, so I thought it'd like link well. A setting for the actual performance. So there's I don't know if anybody else knows this, but there's a thing in Saddleworth that we do called Yanks Weekend, where everyone comes down and they dress up in like period clothing of then, from like the war, and the people bring all like the old cars, and there's like airplanes and stuff. So I thought if we could, like, for the setting of it, it'd be cool if we could do like a marquee with like hay bales and do the performance inside there and make it kind of like close, not close, but like relate to like the time period, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, Savannah. Now, what I'm going to say is, firstly, is like the detail in knowing why, knowing your setting. That's a good example. There is like, I'm going to set it here because of this time frame, because of that, and I can relate to this. You've got the 75 years. You see how you're woven into your idea here. That's really essential. Like Madison knew that she wanted to set it there, and she wanted these comedic themes. I think the more detail, the more specific you can be, and the more ideas you've got that can relate to like my setting, why I'm setting it there, why this time frame. For example, Savannah, you said about diary entries from the Second World War. Now, I'm guessing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Savannah, because this is your idea, not mine. Was that because you knew that being somebody who was gay or homosexual in that time, it was less accepted by culture?
Yeah. So for the story, it would basically just be told as it's his diary entry, and we're reading it, and that's how the kind of the story is explained. Is the idea I had.
Okay, cool. And then you wanted to link it in with a 75-year anniversary as well, which is what that, I'm right in saying that. That's correct.
Yeah.
Cool. And then just out of my head, just thinking about this, there's other themes that you could link in there. You could start to look at how that links in with people like Alan Turing. If anybody knows who Alan Turing is, a gay man from Manchester who cracked the Enigma code, who was persecuted for being gay after the Second World War. So that's really good as well. And then you've got this setting that you think would fit in terms of where you want to perform it with the show that you're doing. So that's great. These are really good examples. And we're already thinking, we're already working these plot lines in. We're already considering our settings. Fantastic. Well done. Savannah, I'm going to ask you to mute yourself now, unless you've got anything else you wanted to add to the group.
No, thank you.
Thanks, Savannah. Right, guys. Fantastic. I'm going to move on again. I'm just aware of the time, and I want to make sure that I give you a bit of time at the end for questions as well. All rightio. So we're now going to move on to the next section. So we've got the what and we've got the why. And we're going to look a little bit more in detail as to the when. All right. And we've kind of touched on it a bit already, but I think it's important that we focus on this a bit more. So when is the story set in terms of what time frame? Like we said before, our kid is in modern day Manchester. Is yours set in 1800s Shanghai? Is it set in a mythological place? Know when. The reason I want to look at this in more detail is it could be that your piece of theatre runs over various time frames. All right, some pieces of theatre will. Now, that's fine. More than welcome to do that, as long as the audience can follow the story and follow the time frame, right? That can be one of the most difficult challenges. you, in your head, you've got the time frame. You know where it's going. But you've got to imagine that your audience has no idea. So if you're moving across different plot lines, time frames, should I say, is your audience able to follow that path? Right. That's really integral. I'm going to use Our Kid again. So Our Kid starts in the 1990s. It transitions through to the noughties, to the 2010s, all the way up to modern day. So essentially, it moves through 4 time frames: 90s, noughties, 2010s, up to about 2018-19. Right, so there's your 4 sets of time frames, right? But I think if you watched Our Kid in 3 years, you'd still think that it relates to modern day unless there's some massive transitions, right? So how did I take the audience through those time frames without holding a sign up that says 90s, Britain, noughties, Britain? You've got to think about some techniques that are going to help you take the audience with you. Now, if we think about Madison or Savannah's idea for a moment, if we think Savannah was mentioning about being in the Second World War through diary entries, the fact that letters are being sent could be a good mechanism. Maybe they speak about things that are going on at the time frame. Maybe it's the clothes that the soldier wears. Maybe there's talk of Hitler. You know, cultural reference points. Okay? So when is your time frame set? Specifically, if it moves through various time frames, how are you going to reveal that? One idea is cultural reference points. Okay? So you've got, for Our Kid, for example, I use, as funny as this is, I use Manchester United Football Club as a cultural reference point. How do I do that? I'll show you as well in a moment's time. I get the Jimmy to talk about things that are going on in that time that relate to Manchester United. Now, you might now go, but hold on a minute, I don't know anything about football. Not everybody is going to know. That's exactly right. So Manchester United Football Club, the players that are at the club, the period of time where they're being successful or not successful is what I use as a cultural reference point to try and show the audience where we are in time. What I'll also do is talk in the dialogue about things that are going on at the time. So there's a reference at one point to Jimmy says, you know, you think he was Eric Cantona and I was Margaret Thatcher in my house. Eric Cantona in the 90s was a god in Manchester. Margaret Thatcher at the end of the 90s into the early 90s was seen as the evil figure. They're my cultural reference points. It could be the setting that you're in and your description of the setting. So if Madison is in Scotland in the modern day, in a specific area, she needs to find something in that area, a building or an event or something that they're attending or they're going past that will show the audience that we're in this time frame. Clothing, big part of it. If Savannah is in 1941, in the middle of the Second World War, what would the soldier wear? How would he speak differently to what you would do in modern day? How does a modern day Mancunian man from a working class estate speak differently from a Mancunian man in the army in the 1940s? What was the language they used? So you need to think about the language that they use in terms of the dialogue, behavior as well. It sounds really easy, but it's not, is that people's behavior over different time frames. 1940s working class man, morality was a big thing. Your morals, the way that aspiration of we're working class, but we aspire to be more middle class and we still hold ourselves in a certain way. You know, brothers in arms. They talk about this notion of serve for Queen and country in the 40s. They knew their purpose. I'm doing it for my country. That's why I'm doing it. The modern day, there's a lot more new ideas. We're thinking differently. We're behaving differently. There's people that I think if they tried to call up now would go, I'm not going to fight your war for this, for that. People were a bit more affiliated towards the king and democracy in those days. Not always, but these are things you need to consider. So behavioural patterns, cultural reference points, and settings. So I say for our kid, I used Manchester United Football Club as a way. I also used cultural reference points. I also used like descriptions of where I was or things that I were attending or, and music, the music that I used. Again, we talked about music and the Manchester soundtrack. I tried to link in songs with the time frame. So there's a point where Jim is 13, 14 and Rock and Roll Star comes on. And it was when the re-release of the Oasis's Definitely Maybe had come back in and a brand new generation of teenagers like myself at the time got Oasis again. Because it was early 90s, they re-released it and suddenly it was #1 in the charts in 1996. And then in 2002, when they re-released it, it was back there again. That's ways. I use music and cultural reference points. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to briefly show that to you. What are we doing? Share screen. There we are. Just bear with me 1 second. So, here we go. 520. Right, yeah, skippity doo dah. Let's go from here.
Go play outside, boys. But Mum, it's raining. We'll go to Gram's or go to Dave's. I need to talk to Tony. Oh, boys, he's bought you some sweets and some stickers too. He seems all right. I'm 11. He took me and our kid to Old Trafford for the first time. We not long had Cantona with Ensign Keane in midfield and Ryan Giggs on the wing. The young Welsh wizard. Whoa! The Theatre of Dreams. Man, this was like nothing I'd ever seen before. This was like the first time a girl kisses you. No, like when you get a Sega Mega Drive for Christmas.
So within that context there are 3 things that I do. One is that notion of when your mum wanted you out the house, which is very much relates to an 80s, 90s thing, was go outside and play. You didn't really have computers. Your mum wanted you out. You were out on if you were at school and you'd done your homework, you're out the door playing with the kids. When your mum wanted you out the house, she'd send you out. Right, go on, go play outside, out the doors. It seems alien now, but your mum would go, get out, push you out, shut the door, go and play outside. Because that's how they were brought up. And that is a behavioural pattern of a mother with a child, certainly in the late 80s, 90s. That was what they did. They'd just throw you outside. You go play outside, that's how you learn, that's how you behave, right? Secondly, we talk about Manchester United. Ince, Keane, people might not know, but that was a very successful team of about 93, 94. Then we talk about the Sega Mega Drive. No, it's like when you get a kiss for first time you get a kiss off a girl. No, it's like when you get a Sega Mega Drive for Christmas. We went from, compared to like a PlayStation 4 now, the Sega Mega Drive, you'd go, what the hell is that? But we went from, the 80s kids had these Amstrad computers where it was like, beep, 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 beep. If you saw one of them games now, you'd be like, what? And suddenly a Master System, it was 2D on a screen, and you had Sonic and you had Alex the Kid. It was like a massive, massive thing. It was like going from a Nokia 3310 to an iPhone, if that makes sense to anybody. Again, I might be showing my age with the Nokia 3310 there, but that's a way that I tried to reveal the time frame that I was in at the time. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm just going to fast forward it just to show you another one and how we've evolved through time. Yeah, so let's take it from about here.
And the parties we had when Tommy got out of the hospital. And then Mary. Harry from the booth had got me a job, working on site, building flats and that. I was still selling on the side, away games with Rooney, Ronaldo and Tevez. He plays on the left, he plays on the right. That boy Ronaldo made City look shite. Jesus, Moscow, what a night. Now beats the treble, and Solskjaer has won it! But against Chelsea, well, that was something else. And then, everything changed.
Just in those two clips there, what we see is, we see using United as that plot line again, Rooney, Ronaldo, Tevez. Again, some of you are going to go, what is he on about? But that relates to about between 2008 to 2010, specifically 2009 was the Champions League final. And believe it or not, 2009 is when Not 19 Forever by the Cortinas was released. Can you believe that was 2009? What an album, by the way. So two little mechanisms that I did there. I've not told the audience it's 2009. And some people might not go, oh, they're not going to go, oh, it's 2009. But they'll kind of, oh, yeah, oh, I've got a bit more of an understanding. And also we see the progression in the behaviour of Jimmy and Tommy. Yeah, I was 11. I went to Old Trafford. So we, oh, yeah, I'm still selling on the side and now I'm going to the pub for a pint. We're showing a transition of age as well. Does that make sense? Fabulous, darlings. Fabulous. Stop sharing. There we go. Right. Okay. So that's some examples. Now, the other part of the when, a very, very important part. When will you rehearse the show? When? Set yourself a schedule. Find a suitable venue and time frame that suits you and the cast. Okay? When are you going to perform it? Be specific. Link this into your plan and your goals. You need to find a venue that you're going to perform it at. If you've got the luxury of you doing a show at Oldham Uni with Trey, you know you've got the performance space. Trey will give you that space so you know when you're going to be doing it already. If you're entering a theatre festival, you've got to do that yourself. You need to source that venue. Go and investigate it. When are you going to rehearse? You need to set a schedule that suits you and suits the cast. Try and give yourself, like I say, you need to give yourself as much time. Know the specific date and time that you're going to perform. If Madison and Savannah are performing their shows on August the 10th, and we're just setting it now, they know they've got quite a long time to work towards those shows. Okay? They know August the 10th at 8 o'clock, I'm performing the show at Oldham University for an audience of lecturers, but there could be people from the public, mums and dads come in. You know what you're walking towards. Then you've got to think, how many rehearsals a week do I need to get my show where I want it to be for that day? So, what's your specific dates and times that you're going to perform it? That is your deadline. That works in with your goals that we've been setting. When you're working with rehearsals, right, work towards these dates. Set specific goals. I'm performing a show on August the 10th, for example. We just said that, so I could use those dates. What day do you want to be completely off script by, if it's a scripted performance? If you say, I want to be off script completely by July the 10th, which gives me 4 weeks to get it where it needs to be. Set yourself that goal, because then you're working towards, by July the 10th, I need to be completely off script, okay? Be specific again, what date? When's your tech rehearsal going to be? When's your dress rehearsal going to be? Be specific again. Know these dates. Know when you're going to perform it, what date, what time. Find out as soon as you can when your dress rehearsal is going to be, when your tech rehearsal is going to be. Because if you've got a dress rehearsal and it's 2 days before your performance and you come to your dress rehearsal, I always think is an indication, it's like a test run, isn't it? essentially, of where you're at. That could be the last time you get to run the full show leading up to your opening performance. And if you don't know your lines, if nothing's worked by that point, that's a good indication of where you're at. So you know, if you set mini goals leading up, by my dress rehearsal, I want to be A, B, C. I want to be almost there, off script, comfortable, acting in the moment. Yeah? Set yourself these goals. Then logistical things. Props. When are you going to get your props? Again, set yourself a date. Assign that task to somebody within your group. Steve is going to get the props once we've discussed it, and we're going to give in 3 weeks, we want the props ready. Boom, there you go. When are you going to incorporate technical aspects such as sound, light, music? Show's not just about, although rehearsal and experimentation is a big part of the process, so is lighting, so is sound, so is music. So when are you going to have all that ready? I'm going to give you an example here again. Our kid. My opening performance was July the 20th, 2019 at 7 o'clock. I started rehearsals for our kid in April. So mid-April, May, June, up to mid-July. Around about 12 weeks was the total process, right? I decided I was going to rehearse a minimum of 3 times a week for the first 3 weeks to set a time as a play and create period. Because I knew I had the luxury of 12 weeks. My first 3 weeks were going to be a play and create period. 3 times a week, minimum of 4 to 6 hours. So that gave me about anywhere from 18. It was more like we ended up doing about 20 to 22 hours a week. Some of you that maybe have been to Oldham College, my director was Miranda Parker, who teaches at Oldham College, a very good director and a very good tutor as well. I knew that we needed a lot of play because of what I wanted to do. So I set myself, in the first 3 weeks, play and create 20 hours a week, 18 to 20 minimum. Always, of course, things come up in life, but you've got that basis that you're working towards, right? That was my time to try new plot lines, try new ideas, and to create a structure. Now, I wanted all my tech stuff completed by June the 10th. It was. I wanted all my props sorted by that week, and they were. I wanted to be fully off script by June the 1st. I probably wasn't off script till June the 18th or 19th, and still I'd have days when you forget bits because it's me on stage by myself for an hour and 10 minutes or an hour and 5 once it was tightened up. And sometimes it's about remembering things through music, through plot lines, through interaction. My tech was on July the 17th. My dress was on the 19th. So I knew where my tech was, I knew where my dress was, and I knew when I needed it to be. That's what you guys need to do. You need to know when your tech is, when your dress is, when your performance dates are, when you need to get your props by, when your sound, light, music needs to be done by. Set a rehearsal schedule. Set yourself as much time as you possibly can. I always say this to you, if you really want to make your piece of theatre the best it possibly can, you'll make time. You will. When I had to do a one-man show, and I knew that I was nobody else I could fall back on, and when I'd sold 400 tickets, I was like, oh my God, if I'm shit, people are going to know. There's people to come and see this, there's reviewers. So that forced me to go, I will put this time in. You guys need to do that. Put as much time and effort in as you can. Honestly, it's so integral to performance. I think that some of the best performers or actors that might not be, some of them you go, they're maybe not as talented, but the dedication that they put into their craft is phenomenal. And I tell you what, directors will rehire, and rehire, because they'll know, actually, do you know what? for Nadia, for Madison, for Amy, for Liz, for Killian. I'm going to get them back in because I know they'll put the graft in. I know that I can rely on them. And I know that by the time we come to the rehearsal, they're going to be doing this, they're going to be doing that at home. That's what it's about, guys. You've got to say to yourself, what's more important? Going to the pub, watching Netflix, or making my show as good as it possibly can be? It's about how much you want it. Now, I was going to set a little task for you, but just because of timing and I want to give you some questions, I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to move on to the final section, which is the how. So, simply, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do this? Firstly, if you've entered a festival, you need to fill the application form in. You need to find a venue. Sort out a date for a performance. You need to book it all. You need to locate any costume you need, props you need. You need to find somewhere to rehearse it. You might need someone to direct it, and possibly even somebody else to tech the show. What you need to do is get all those details into place as soon as you can. I always think if you're creating something for a festival, or as soon as you book those dates, and get it booked, get a venue booked, get a date booked, or a couple of dates booked, because then you've got your deadline. That will spring you into action. If you're at uni or you're doing a project and Trey set you a deadline and she goes, you will be performing this show on August the 10th. You know, that's my deadline. You might have had the luxury of knowing what venue you're going to be in, what time you're going to be in. Then it's about you finding your tech. It's about you finding your music, your props, your rehearsal time. That's how you do it. Get those things in place as quick as you can. Somebody touched on it before. I think it might have been Madison. But research. Oh, I've got a. Bear with me 1 second. Oh, sorry guys. Yeah, so this runs on to 12:30. I hope that's all right with everybody. I maybe should have touched on that at the start. If anybody does need to dash off, I completely understand, but we are going to run on to 12:30 and that'll give you a few chances for questions. For example, research. If you want to make a piece of theatre, a hypothetical one about a gay soldier, and you've not been in the army, and you don't know much about oppression of the army, how are you going to find out? How are you going to create a show about that? Research is how you're going to do it. Get knowledge from people, ask questions, research and understanding. Now, you've seen a show that you like, a film, a series. Maybe you want to include an idea from something like that. How are you going to do that? Read it if it's a play. Research it, watch it again, write things down. Don't just watch it and enjoy the show. Write things down. Read that play and go, I like that. Write down tricks, techniques that the writer uses, that the filmmaker uses, that the performer uses. Research shows that you watch. I do it all the time. The amount of times I watch film, my missus goes, stop writing stuff down. I just want to watch Titanic. And I'm like, I can't help it. You know, use that. Write those things down. Find out, if you're not sure, find out what these techniques are, what the style is that they're using. Get more of an understanding. The more you understand it, the more you can incorporate it into your own performance. Also, does it fit with the original plan? Or how you're going to make your work? Or is it just that you like it? If it doesn't fit, don't use it. Scrap it. We touched on it before. By trying out new things, by listening to other people, that's how you can make things possible. Now, you have to be open to suggestions and realize that your idea might not always be the best idea and someone else's might be more appropriate. I've said it before, make time. If you want a piece of theatre to be as good as it can be dedicated, give yourself the best chance of making it a success. By giving yourself time, by putting these plans in motion, that's how you're going to do it. So I'm just going to sum up here and say, how did I make Our Kid a success? How did I make it different? I use different styles of performance. I combined realism and postmodernism. Two styles that lended itself to the show. I played every single character in the show, switching between them, which is a postmodernism technique. I used a protagonist narrating to the audience. And then I tried to create scenes using more realistic dialogue, which is realistic dialogue is about replicating real conversations that you hear in real life. I rehearsed a lot, 20 hours a week for the first 3 weeks, more like 25, 30 afterwards, around all my other acting jobs as well. I made the time. I failed badly on various days. If any of you know Miranda, she'll tell you there were days where she wanted to kick me in the head repetitively. But you need to do that to improve. Failure is a big part of success. I kept trying to improve things. I wasn't afraid to try things out with my director, who was a phenomenal director. And I got everything booked. I said to myself, I'm going to book it. As soon as I'd finished writing the project, I booked the venue. I booked myself on. I paid for everything. I did everything. Therefore, it made me go, oh, I can't put it off now. I've got to do it. That's how I made it a success. I was going to show you a clip from our kid, but I'm realistic to the fact we've only got 15 minutes left and there might be some questions. So I think it'd be better to actually give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions now. So if we do have chance at the end and there's not many questions, then I can come back to that clip to justify it. But I think I've given you a good. So let's just do a quick overview. The what, the when, the why, and the how. They're the 4 main points. And I've covered the 4 specific areas within that point. So now I'm going to open it up to you. And I'm also going to say thanks very much for taking time to listen to me yabba, yabba, yabba and watching parts of my play. I hope I've kind of made the process a bit more clearer to you and my approach and other successful people's approach. And just say, if you've got any questions, as we did before, please do raise your hands. Oh, Scott has got his hand raised. So what I am going to do, come out of this chat. Scott had his hand raised. I'm going to mute myself. Scott, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, sir, and I'm going to open up the floor to you.
You said at the beginning that you'd worked in like the Lowry Theatre and you'd also worked on cruise ships. Do you think you could like talk about like what the difference is between working in the theatre and working on a cruise ship? Like what exactly goes into it? Oh.
I have to unmute myself first, don't I? Of course I can, mate. Yes, Scott. First of all, I think the differences between, for example, you said the Lowry and the cruise ship is when I was working at the Lowry, it was quite a big production for me at the time. It got Arts Council project. We'd already been rehearsing and performing at other venues. It was part of a tour. So it was touring the country and then it was doing 5 nights at the Lowry. When you go into a theatre like that, it's kind of more of an institution. So within that theatre, you've got everything you need. Your equipment's ready to go. You've got great rehearsal spaces. They're there for you in some capacity, depending on where you're putting your show on. But also, there is a level of professionalism that they expect back. So I would say if you're opening up on the Lowry on a Wednesday, you don't, on a Tuesday, for example, want to not know your lines and know where you're at. By the time you're coming up to there, you need to be bang on form, and that's kind of what they expect. These institutions set up a foundation for you within like places like the Lowry, the Royal Exchange. People will go to those venues and people expect a high caliber and high quality from them. Therefore, you need to make sure, therefore, the structure that's there, there's a lot of people that can help you out. There's good technicians that are always available. You've got great rehearsal spaces and great performance spaces. You also generally get a bit more time and get what you require. They will promote you a lot of the time because of the fee that you pay includes promotion. They're pushing ticket sales. It's not just you. When you're working on a cruise ship, for example, as I did as an actor, host, actor and presenter, it's a very quick turnaround. You only get 2 weeks rehearsal, and within those 2 weeks, for some of your shows, within 3 days, they expect you to, around your 10-hour shift, know your lines. They have got paying customers that want quantity and quality all the time. So usually you're not just rehearsing one show, you're rehearsing, as well as rehearsing the murder mystery that you're doing for an hour, you've also got a karaoke that you've got to host. You're also doing an immersive games night, and you're also doing maybe a bit of a stand-up or a comedy show. So you're rehearsing multiple things at once. I think on a cruise ship, generally, you're consumed by it. You are performing, sometimes I would be doing something immersive or performing from 9 in the morning till 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd get up at 9, start work at 10, have an hour off here or there, and would be working non-stop from 10 to 1 a.m. In that day, I might do a murder mystery in the morning, 2 games events. I might host a games thing on the mic for all the ship to hear. I might then go and immerse myself with the guests, because that's part of it. And then later on, I might be hosting the karaoke. I might be part of the dance-off, and I might be part of the pre-planned game, where the audience, it's a game that you're just setting up, but you already kind of know. A bit like wrestling, you already kind of got a storyline where I go, oh, I'm going to push so-and-so in the pool at this time. Now, so the main difference is when you work in somewhere like the Lowry, for example, all your focus and energy is on the one project. On the cruise ships and things like that, generally you have multiple projects that you need to work on, but all of them need to be of a high standard. And you've generally got less time, I'm going to be honest. Thanks for that, Scott. Okay, so I'm going to ask Scott to mute himself for the time being, and then I'm going to ask anybody else for a question to raise their hand.
Hi, Taran. I can't actually raise my hand because I'm behind. But just a question from Liz. So she asked me to ask you for her. So how long did it take you to write Our Kid, the script, and how many drafts did you write?
Firstly, I should say that it was an idea that was in my head for a long time. Years it was in my head. And I was too scared to do anything about it, if I'm being honest. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid of failure. But I was on the cruise ship in 2017 to 2018, September 2017 till end of May 2018. And I was working a lot of hours. I was very tired. And I realised that the cruise ship wasn't for me. But what I really wanted to do was write this play. And so I forced myself to write a little bit every day. And I had a first draft within 4 months of being on the ship. I then put it down and didn't touch it for I came off the ship. Unfortunately, I was ill, so I came off with a quite a bad illness. I was suffering from fatigue and mental and exhaustion. So I had to go into a recovery process of 3 or 4 weeks, which gave me a bit of time to focus on it. I then got a play doing a show called Spells touring the country till September. So I took 5 or 6 months to do that. But then I did another draft. And then by January 2019, I was on draft 3. And that's when I felt I was ready. And again, what I did is during the rehearsal process with Miranda is I allowed that to, although we had the script, we let things that happened in the performance process alter the script. And there were times where she goes, I'm not sure about that. Let's cut that and let's try this. And then I'd try a new piece of dialogue. She goes, that fits so much better. Let's put that in. So even when I had my 3rd draft, it's still altered through the rehearsal performance. So I'd say I've had about 4 drafts, but I'd say 1 draft was what I like to call the experimentation draft, where you had your 3rd draft as a set and you allow things to happen in the rehearsal process, and you cut the things that don't work or that don't add anything to the script, and you input things then. But if you think about the time logistically of just to write it, it took me a year to write on and off. I hope that answers the questions without jabbering too much. Okay, Amy's got her hands up. Amy, I'm going to mute myself now, Amy, and I'm going to let you ask me a question. Go ahead.
My question is, how do you get over the part of the process where you think everything that you've created is a bag of shit and no one's going to like it?
A very good question as well, Amy. How do you get over that process? Do you know what? There is no, I'm being honest, mate, there's no formula for really getting over that. I think even like, no matter how successful you are, there's still times where work's not coming your way or things are not happening for you, and you will start to question yourself. I know, mate, because I've done it and I still do it to this day now. And I think you've got to kind of, what you need to do is think about, write down the positive aspects of the script or the piece, relate back to that. Think about the reaction you get from people. Don't be afraid, right, to put on little snippets for an invited audience. You know, the amount of times where people go straight into a performance, if you think halfway through this, I could show an extract of it. Certainly when you're at university, if you're with Trey, for example, she'll probably ask at times, right, can you show me what you've done so far? That'll give you a real indication. Now, people go, oh yeah, but you do that at uni, but why can't you do that in real life? Do you know, I still use my old acting tutors or people that I trust. If you've got a good relationship with somebody, Amy, in the industry, or, you know, directors or actors that you trust their judgment, or Trey, the amount of times that I go back to Stephen Berwind or John Deeney or directors that I've worked with, or Jim Cartwright, and just say, look, I know you're busy, but if you get a chance, could I invite you to this? Could I show you this? Generally, if they like you and you get on with, they'll make time for you. They will, and I always say, be truthful. Let's not beat around the bush. Be truthful. I think the best directors are the ones that go, if they've got a lot of points, of go, you need to do this at this moment, and they're more specific, we automatically go, oh, it's not very good. Actually, they've really enjoyed it because they can be that specific, because they can see it going on a positive time frame. So I think use people that you trust to help you develop it, but also stay true to yourself, Amy. Like, if you've got that gut feeling, trust your gut. If you think, you know, this is really good, or if you think it's not so good, you know what? We're always going to have self-doubt, but it's about believing in yourself and going, if I don't, I always go, what if? So I don't do it. Do you know what? It's not good enough. I'm not going to do it. What do I win? What do I lose? But there's always that what if. If I had done it, let's say, I mean, I've put on stuff before that has been not that good. But do you know what, Amy? That was a process in me getting better. I'm always thinking, if you put on this show, it doesn't quite work out. Next time you put on a show, you go, well, that didn't work and that didn't work, but that did. So I take that from that into that. Self-doubt's a really difficult thing to get over. But you just have to believe in yourself and believe in the process, and know that some of the most successful performers in the world have failed continuously. It's not a cliche. It's the amount of times you have to fail to get. I mean, think about a show or you know, even like a film. For example, you think some of the best films of all time, like Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, those kind of caliber of films. There'll be people in the world that go, that's a right shit film, I hate that, it's boring. That's fine. You literally cannot please everybody. But if you can improve and stay dedicated to your craft, your belief and your confidence will grow. And sometimes it's about turning yourself off to the negative influences and thinking about the positive aspects. Know what you're working towards. Hey, we're all going to fail at something, but I'd rather try and fail and get better and succeed next time than not try at all because I was scared of failure and then I'm never going to get any better. Does that make sense, Amy? Cool. Does anybody else have any more questions for me? I think we might have time for one more if we do. I'm going to say that that's a no then. Well, everybody, thank you very much for attending this Making Theatre workshop. Thanks for giving me a clap, Amy. I hope that I've helped you really, and it's been useful. I tried to really break it down and use my one-man show. Trey, I'm just going to say about do I put in a chat? Oh, sorry, there's a chat link come up here at the bottom. Bear with me 1 second.
It's an old one, don't worry.
All right. What I thought I would do now, guys, if you just bear with me 1 second, is I'm just going to get the link up to my one-man show, and I am going to copy it and paste it into the chat at the bottom now. So that, I'm going to do that to everyone. Hopefully. That is the link. If any of you would like to watch the full performance from start to finish, please feel free to. If anybody's got any questions that they didn't want to ask in front of everybody else or they're not sure about, please speak to Trey. She can contact me. I'm more than happy to help you guys in any way that I can. And please, if you ever want, I'm not always massively busy. Like I said before, now you've been part of my workshop, always happy to give you advice, help you in any way I can, see performances if I'm able to, and so forth. And yeah, just thank you very much for being part of this. And I hope you guys are all really successful with your shows that you're doing over the next couple of days. I'm really hoping to actually see a few myself. So cheers, everyone.
Thank you, Taran. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't know how we end it now.
Well, I can close the meeting, but thanks, Taran. That was brilliant. Unfortunately, I've got to run off because there's some other stuff about to start, but I'll check in with you when this is done. And please stick around and watch some stuff if you can. I think it'll be fun.
I'm working from home today, so that's the idea. So also, if anybody's got any links or anything that I can access, you can send it to Trey and she can send it on to me, and then I can get access. Or I suppose if I just look on the Excel Facebook group, I can do that, can I, Trey? Yeah,
everything will go live from the Facebook group. In fact, some things are literally live, and the other things will have YouTube links, so you could just follow through with us.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye.